We believed. Checked. It's a case.
Shooters. Mars seems to be the only planet in the solar system on which mankind hopes to find something. So we look forward to receiving information from automatic stations heading for Mars. This planet is probably the most popular planet in the world. Since the opening of the so-called channels, Mars has not stopped imagining people's imagination. In the summer of the 1973rd year, she was preparing for a far-flung Mars flight with a whole squadron of Soviet automatic stations. True, this time the location, as the astrologers put it, was not conducive to launching the planet. The 1971st year, when the last expedition began, was a great battle against Mars. At this time, the Earth and Mars are closest to each other, and now the opposition to the lumber was ordinary. And the space abyss spread another 10 million miles. For the designer, this meant additional fuel consumption and therefore weight. That's why the stations decided to specialize. They look like each other on the outside. They've got a unified flight path, but different passengers. Mars has it, which means it's a launch vehicle. Mars is back to the satellite's orbital array of instruments. In all space stations, interplanetary and solar equipment was deployed during the long 6-month journey to Mars. A number of instruments installed on board the station have been created by French scientists. All the onboard appliances and the components of the structure have been subjected to the most delicate tests in the plant that established the stations. Now, the way. After the launch from the launch site, the traditional farewell turn around the planet. By targeting them, the stations are now starting from near-Earth orbit. It's the last step. Mars is in front. The studies of the Soviet stations Mars 2, Lars 3 and the American satellite Mariner 9 gave science more than hundreds of years of previous ground observations by traditional means, which, for example, is the mysterious Martian channel. Most of them were just giant tectonic pits, cracks in the Martian cortex. Mars' world looks like the Moon, cold, lifeless. The carbon dioxide atmosphere is very discharged. But at the same time, the notion of Mars as a geological dead planet collapsed. A moon like this opened up giant ring mountains. But a few months of intense dust storm covered up many features of the Martian portrait. The new Martian squadron should have clarified them. At the Flight Control Center, they were preparing for the finish line. With these last moments, the Earth is trying to help as much as possible its messenger, who will continue to act absolutely self-sustaining. Then the eyes of the Mars Express navigation system opened a long-awaited planet. She looked like a red moon. The station passenger heard her, and the surveillance came into the vehicle's onboard computer. The launch vehicle was separated from the flight stage. During the descent, for the first time in history, direct scientific measurements were made in the Martian sky, determining pressure, temperature, atmospheric chemistry, and a significant number of measurements were made. According to scientists, this indicates that the gas flow from the Martian crust is the same as the Earth's. Comparing this with others, it can be concluded that 99% of the Martian atmosphere are frozen in polar caps. No less interesting information, let's go to Mars 5 station, which became a distant planet satellite. It's finally proven that Mars has its own magnetic field, only about 500 times weaker than our Earth's, which means the planet can have a dense core. The atmosphere of Mars has detected traces of ozone that can delay the ultraviolet radiation of the Sun, which is devastating for all living things.
In the atmosphere of Mars, the water vapor content is higher than in the 1972nd year.
The images, especially the colored ones, clearly show up in an entity that is surprisingly similar to the windy riverbeds. Their length is great, and their width is greater than that of the Earth. By analyzing all the data, scientists tend to think that the Martian atmosphere can have two states that are currently diluted and otherwise under normal pressure, almost like ours on Earth. During this period, polar hats are melted and rivers flow. Maybe there's a life on Mars during the Ice Age. Martian organisms are sleeping, and when it's over, they wake up. According to some scientists, the last favorable period on Mars was about 20 million years ago. So these are hypotheses. They need to be checked carefully. But it is now clear that Mars is a planet subject to rapid change. The future favorable conditions on Mars can be repeated, and some generations of Earthlings may see the bloom.